Decisive victory for one, brutal decimation for the other. Britain's Labour Party has won the UK general election, bringing to a crushing end the Conservatives' 14-year-long reign.
From the voters, from Britain's top broadcasters.
Oh my God.
A deafening anti-incumbent revolt and a landslide for the UK's Labour Party, winning 410 of the 650 seats in Parliament so far.
14 years of Tory chaos and we are finally out of it.
For the ruling Conservative Party, its worst defeat in their nearly 200-year history.
The British people have delivered a sobering verdict tonight.
The Tories, not the only big losers.
What's happening in Scotland is the end of a decade of SNP dominance.
The pro-independence Scottish National Party facing a wipeout, expected to fall from 48 out of 57 seats in Scotland to just 8.
What the hell has happened?
But the biggest surprise of the night?
This, folks, is huge.
The dramatic rise of Reform UK, the election's hard-right anti-immigration insurgents, winning 4 seats.
It's almost unbelievable.
Their polarising leader, Nigel Farage, finally becoming an MP on his 8th attempt.
This is just the first step of something that is going to stun all of you.
He's going to be a rabble-rouser and he'll be a thorn in Keir Starmer's side.
For outgoing PM Rishi Sunak, his snap election gamble failed.
This is a story of 14 years and 5 Prime Ministers who run this country into the ground.
A mutinous British electorate upset after a run of turbulent years, austerity, Brexit, scandals, stagnant wages, overwhelmed public services.
No more of the lies, of the deceit. Who could ever have thought that a government would be as utterly banal and ridiculous as this one? So let's get the party started because they have gone.
Sir Keir Starmer, 61 years old, former chief prosecutor and human rights lawyer, to become Britain's most powerful PM since Tony Blair.
Even though they don't particularly sort of trust everything Keir Starmer says, they just want change.
While Europe swings right, the UK bucking the trend on the brink of a new era of British politics.
Change begins now.
Latika Burke is in the midst of it all in London. She's been good enough to make time for us now, though. Latika, the country's waking up to a new government. What's the feeling like?
Well, if you're like me, you just need caffeine. More seriously, though, there is not a lot of, wow, this is a new dawn. I know Keir Starmer was trying to make this out in his speech, but actually the lack of enthusiasm is the real story here. This has not been an election that people have seized with any great emotion or joy. It's been an election of disaffection, and it's been an election of anger, and it's been an election of punishment. And the Labor victory is sizable. It's huge, it's historic, it's great for them, and they are going to be celebrating into the day today on Friday. But it does conceal a lot of problems underneath that are there for Labor and the Conservative Party too.
Nigel Farage has finally won a seat in Parliament. Reform achieved, the unexpected. What does that mean for Labor?
Now, arguably, there is no politician who's not been in the House of Commons who's done more to shape the destiny of the UK than Nigel Farage, because, of course, he drove the Brexit referendum. And that's really what started the destruction of the Conservative Party that has played out in the vote overnight. Now, around roughly 100 seats, Reform came second. Now, this is huge in a first-past-the-post system. If this was our system in Australia, you would see Reform absolutely monstering into the House of Commons. But what this means is Farage has a huge platform, and he's going to be attacking not just the Conservative Party, but Labor, and particularly on that red-hot issue of immigration, which we can see is driving far-right sentiment in France and in wider Europe too.
You mentioned the destruction of the Tories. Some would say they've been somewhat decimated. Do you think that they can come back from this?
Yes, I do, because the electorate swung very hard towards Boris Johnson in 2019. What do we see 5 years later? An electorate that is going all over the place. The vote has absolutely mushroomed. It is actually an historic low in terms of vote share for Labor. What we're seeing is record highs again for the Lib Dems, the collapse of the Scottish National Party, and I think the lesson of this election is that voters are not voting Labor or Tory anymore. They have a vote, they will spend it, and they have less patience than before, and they're certainly more disaffected than they've ever been. So that's putting all the parties on notice.
Latika, given that there is a new PM over there, I have been arguing with Susie all day that Keir Starmer is actually the inspiration for Mark Darcy from Bridget Jones's Diary. It's really important to get to know your leaders. Is that true?
I think Keir Starmer wishes.
Thank you. Thank you.
What is he like then? What is he like?
Look, I think the best thing that you can say about the British election is that these two guys, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer, certainly don't set the world on fire. They're not inspirational. You know, they're boring. They're
Colin
difficult
Firth,
to listen
on the other
to.
hand.
Colin Firth, woof.
Exactly. You could look, we could watch him all day. Let's not lie. The best thing about these boring guys is that they are decent, they are respectable, and today in the UK we will have a peaceful transfer of power. That's not necessarily something you can say for other countries, looking at you, United States, and potentially even France. So I think there is a lot to be said for the UK system, and certainly that's something that was celebrated by Rishi Sunak and even some of the MPs who are losing their seats today.
Latika, we covered a lot of bases just then, I've got to say. It went in a different direction.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
It's always a pleasure, guys.